Tocal has now been training young people in agriculture for 23 years, and according to the college, there is a strong demand for its graduates. This year, presenting the 96 certificates and prizes was one of the first official engagements for the new State Minister for Agriculture, Ian Armstrong. Certificates in agriculture were awarded to 56 students, while advanced certificates went to 32 students. This year, 11 gold, silver and bronze medals were also presented to graduates who had displayed excellence in various aspects of their courses. Mr Armstrong says Tocal provides a vital component for rural growth in New South Wales, and he is placing a major emphasis on education in his ministry.
I think we need to continue to work up that educational side of agriculture?
Undoubtedly, and that's the way to go. It's called high-tech, it's called getting into the 1990s, and it's called advancing with the rest of business and commerce. The facility's here, the enthusiasm's here, and the students are here, and it will have my full support as Minister for Agriculture and Rural Affairs.
And what has the Hunter Valley got to look forward to under the new Agricultural Ministry?
Well, firstly, we've got three major initiatives that we gave an undertaking that we would implement upon our election to government. The first one was optimal and creative marketing, which is a much expanded marketing and promotion exercise backed up by the Department of Agriculture, because we want to try and lift farmer returns. The second one is that we have already started to commence a rural cost analysis unit to identify and to recommend on how to reduce some of the costs in agriculture, and particularly government costs. Government, both state and federal and local, is often seen as a non-returning cost to agriculture, and we want to try and lower those. And the third major initiative is leadership training, in that we've indicated we will institute a course to provide leadership training to 6 or 8 people per annum to try and give a top in agriculture and to enhance the already very capable people that are in agricultural lobbying.
Mr Armstrong also says he supports an inquiry into the operation of local government commissioned by the New South Wales Farmers Association. The association believes that farmers are paying higher rates for decreasing local government services. Mr Armstrong says he will comment on the report when it is completed, but supports it in theory.
As far as I'm concerned, I welcome any positive input from any organisation that might help to bring about better efficiencies at any tier of government.
And so local government, you would be supporting it?
The Small Farm Field Days, held each year at Tocal Agricultural College near Paterson, is the major community project undertaken by the Department of Agriculture in the Hunter region. Last year, 7,000 made the trip to Tocal to examine the latest in small farm technology, and organisers expect that figure to climb to 10,000 this year. According to Barry Bailey from the Department of Agriculture, the field days are growing in importance amongst farmers.
In the Hunter Valley, Central Coast and outer Sydney areas, there's been a great expansion of small farms over the last 10 or 15 years. There's been a tremendous demand for information, people that want to live out of town but have had no previous experience in agriculture. So we're largely catering for that market, but we found that a lot of the commercial farmers in the Hunter really enjoy coming here, particularly to look at some of the commercial machinery demonstrations and things like that.
This year, more than 50 commercial exhibitors will be on site, covering almost every aspect of farm life. As well as the usual attractions, 2 new features have been added to celebrate the Bicentenary.
This year we're having 2 special features over and above our normal sort of educational lectures and demonstrations. The big hall at Tocal here will be featuring good food promotions, we're calling it, where we're having demonstrations of cooking all sorts of foods, butchering demonstrations, for example, our Freshest Best Kitchens coming up from Sydney, the Pork Promotion Council, the Dairy Promotion, also a couple of the Hunter Vineyards. So throughout the 3 days we'll be doing all sorts of cooking and food preparation demonstrations there, which should be of interest to everybody.
So it's not just an event for farmers?
Oh no, I think it's an event that would be attractive to the whole community actually. It's a great day out in the country. Another feature we've got this year is a big marquee that we're calling Health and Safety. We'll be doing cholesterol blood tests, pesticide blood tests, featuring all sorts of safety procedures both at home and on the farm. So we think that'll be a big attraction too.
The Hunter Development Board believes quality shopfront service can mean the difference between contracts won and lost. Accordingly, it organised a 2-day conference on the subject for hunter businesses. However, only 5 people applied for the course and it was subsequently cancelled. Training Development Executive Mal Davies says it is difficult to pinpoint why hunter businesses are staying away from the courses.
I think that for a long time people have paid lip service to the idea that training is good. I'm also a little worried that people seem to think that the best trainers, presenters, resource people are in capital cities like Sydney and Melbourne. I really think there's quite a bit of educating to do amongst the members of the business community before we in fact worry too much about the actual training programs and the quality of those training programs that we can offer in the Hunter.
The Hunter Development Board is not the only training ground being ignored by businesses. Last year, Newcastle City Council organised a training seminar designed to teach businesses to take advantage of opportunities opened up by tourism. That too was cancelled because of a lack of interest.
We are finding from experience this year that quite a number of people are cancelling out on courses.
Olivia Fenlon runs seminars for the Australian Institute of Management, which has also had to cancel one seminar and postpone another this year. The AIM is one of the largest training organisations in the state, and Olivia Fenlon says it is significant that its Sydney operations have not declined. She says hunter business people generally represent 10% of her courses in Sydney, and yet an identical course run in Newcastle fails to attract any interest.
Seems to stem from the traditional idea that Sydney has something better to offer than Newcastle.
And that's not the case?
Not with the courses that I'm running, because the identical course can be run up here.
Next one, bricklayer apprentice, the Newcastle Technical College, where he achieved an average of...
On behalf of the other gentlemen that came up here tonight,
At about 11:50 last night, police were called to Beaumont Street, Hamilton, after receiving reports that someone had been stabbed. They found that 2 men had stabbed each other in a domestic argument. Police found a 49-year-old man on the balcony with a severe wound to his abdomen. They also found a 50-year-old man unconscious in the hallway. He had also been stabbed in the stomach. Both men were taken to the Royal Newcastle Hospital and were operated on this morning. The 49-year-old man is in a serious but stable condition, while the 50-year-old man's condition is described as stable. Police say they'll wait until Friday to question the men and say charges may be laid.
Traditionally, some students have made sperm donations at the Lingard Fertility Clinic, making good use of the $15 offered for each donation. Now an increasing number of men who have already fathered children are stepping forward. 50% of current donors are those who plan to have a vasectomy.
They are offered a service whereby we will bank some of their sperm for a finite period of time in exchange for using others of it on our donor program. Now, it's important that if they are contemplating this, that they plan some time in advance, because it takes a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks by the time they've gone through the screening process and made the required number of donations before they can actually have the vasectomy.
Men considering a vasectomy and interested in becoming donors should contact the clinic. Dr Brinsmead says there is a great need to obtain more donors in the Newcastle region.
We have 40 to 50 couples a year in the Hunter region that approach us needing donor sperm, and we need generally at least that number or more donors applying as well.
He says sperm donation isn't popular. It's a clinical procedure at a hospital and is more complicated than giving blood because of the implications. He says concern about AIDS has also affected supplies. Sperm must now be frozen and held until a donor has been double-checked as AIDS antibody negative.
Up to 50% of the sperm is lost in the freezing and thawing process, but even worse than that, up to 50% of people who approach us as potential donors are found to be quite unsatisfactory. They have sperm which is good enough for producing pregnancies, but it is not good enough to freeze and thaw.
That's fine, that's lovely, thank you.
Each year the association recognises the best young builders in the valley with its Apprentices of the Year awards. Presentations were made to 5 students this year who excelled in their building courses at 4 colleges in the region. Stephen Uphill topped the Carpentry and Joinery course at Belmont College. Due to its large number of students, Newcastle was allowed to select 2 award winners, Darren Colreevy in bricklaying and Glenn Turner, who topped his signwriting course. Stephen Upton represented Maitland, taking out the medal for his performance in carpentry and joinery. But the evening belonged to 19-year-old Stephen Moffat of Stone. Stephen won an award for topping his carpentry and joinery course at Muswellbrook and was also announced the year's gold medal winner, earning him the title of Hunter District Craftsman of the Year.
The storm clouds intensified overnight, dumping heavy falls of rain across the southwest of the city. The overflow from storm drains surged across many roads, forcing traffic to move at a snail's pace. Vehicles ill-equipped to cope with the deluge broke down. Some motorists abandoned their cars to the teeming rain, while others waited helplessly for the boiling stream to subside. Tow trucks enjoyed a brisk trade. Residents spent a sleepless night checking water levels. The State Emergency Service received 160 calls. The worst affected were forced to move to higher ground, rescuing their belongings and the family pet.
Come on, mate.
Daybreak and the real fury of the storm was apparent. In Smith Street, Wallsend, a swollen backyard creek became a raging torrent. The wall of water knocked down fences, forcing residents to swim for their lives.
And dragged the kids out and went round and got Roz and that out the back and just dragged them out the window and wading through water up to our waists, you know, and lost our wallets, lost a lot of things.
It was petrifying. Never seen anything like it. You could have surfed right down here. There was even waves. It was shocking.
This washing line shows just how high the water rose. For flood victims, the night of terror left a legacy of heartbreak. Saturated carpets, sodden clothes, furniture in ruins. Public buildings also bore the brunt of the storm. Wallsend Park was littered with debris, including cupboards washed away from a property upstream. The water level even rose above this backyard swimming pool.
Well, the back fence went and all this brown water just come running through the place within a matter of about 5 minutes. That was the end of it.
The Youth Support Centre was also inundated.
That shed was there and it's moved circles kind of.
While the extent of the damage is still being assessed, more rain is forecast for the region and a careful watch is being kept on the Hunter, Patterson and Williams rivers. While low-lying swamps and marshes have been affected by flash flooding, all of the rivers are reportedly stable. The State Emergency Service has inspected the catchment areas and says so far all the levee systems are coping. River levels will be carefully monitored over the next 48 hours.
Members of the Hunter District Water Board Employees Association gathered at the Workers' Club this afternoon to discuss the rather testy issue of the second-tier wage increase. The board has insisted that granting the 4% increase is conditional on unionists accepting a number of trade-offs. According to union spokesman Lance Woods, the board initially had a list of more than 100 trade-offs. They managed to cut this down to 16 central issues, including the removal of some restrictive work practices. The meeting was told that if members did not accept the package, they'd probably lose the 4%. Members voted unanimously to accept the new deal.
The best we could do was to negotiate with the board to bring the items that they wanted down from 106 items to 16, and that was the best we could do in negotiations. And had they rejected the package today, then there would have been no increase in 4%, and there would have been no further offer by the board in respect to productivity.
So basically they were told that
the under-18s trained last night, or at least attempted to train on the saturated grounds. About 30 young Aboriginal footballers are in the squad, including quite a few with representative experience. Coach Tony Griffith says the team played well in pre-season trials, and that performance augurs well for the Newcastle All Blacks' future in the A-grade competition.
We're going to the 89 comp, and our junior players is really our foundation players now. They're our background. We've got something to fall back on. They'll come through the groups and they will stay in Newcastle. They'll play with Newcastle All Blacks, or they'll go to other clubs and play, you know.
Right now, the boys have their sights set on this season, and Tony believes they've got a bright future.
As we're going on through the year, I reckon we'll have plenty more, because the team is shaping into a very good side, and when it comes around to final times, I reckon we'll be there.
After the rain, insurance companies faced another deluge of anxious homeowners seeking compensation. The NRMA covers up to 1/3 of all insured homes in Hunter, and their assessors expect to pay out more than $1 million. Some of the 600 claimants will miss out. About a dozen homeowners aren't covered because they were direct victims of flood rather than storm damage. NRMA spokesman Gary Farthing says very few failed to qualify for compensation.
Basically, we don't say to someone over the phone that because you're in a flood zone that you won't be covered. We go out and we do assess. We treat each one individually. But however, the general rule of thumb would be that if you're living next door to a canal or a creek or a river, and that rises and comes into your house, that would be regarded as flood.
The NRMA expects another 100 claims for damaged vehicles, adding approximately $300,000 to the bill. The Community Welfare Centre at Hamilton has helped 140 families in need of flood relief, including 10 needing beds and bedding. Many families living in government or rented homes had no contents insurance.
A large proportion of the people that are coming to see us straight away are those that are not covered by insurance.
Once again, we're offering them immediate help. We're leaving with them claims for flood relief through the state government schemes, and we'll be processing those in due course. We are offering assistance, and they will be able to claim for those items that are necessary to the normal functioning of their home.
Action in Belgium.
Pressure over millions of years produced the valuable fossil fuel, but it took pressure during a mere 7 years to bring about the change of policy.
I think we probably drove them in Parliament pretty crazy over the period of time, and we were successful in obtaining an undertaking by the coalition government, if they ever regained power, that this would be part of their undertaking, that they would return to the rightful owners or pay fair and just compensation.
Former Premier Neville Wran broke with 130 years of tradition when he stripped owners of coal rights, a move the new government describes as blatant assets filching. But the plan to reverse the controversial Coal Acquisition Act may be harder to execute than it sounds. 10,000 claims for compensation worth millions and millions of dollars have been lodged. In some cases, the coal has already been mined. Nevertheless, the Minister for Mineral Resources, Neil Pickard, says the government is committed to the policy.
There are funds there. The government has been collecting royalties, remember.
For claimants, it's also a question of basic rights.
And I think if we're going to preserve our traditional rights or inalienable rights in Australia, I think property rights is equally as important as civil and political rights. If we look around the world and look at countries that don't have these kind of rights, we end up with dictatorships and communisms and fascisms and all the other isms that are unpleasant to live under.
The government hopes, and indeed it's assumed, that the majority of claims relate to land that hasn't been touched in any way. A simple handover of the mineral rights would then be possible. Today, the Minister's office conceded ticklish legal questions surround the remaining cases where the coal has been mined. A special working party will investigate those cases during the next 6 weeks.
Caves Beach, 30 kilometres south of Newcastle, is on a peninsula of spectacular cliffs and neglected scrub. Gordon Pacific Limited gained the 750-hectare parcel of land on acquiring the Wallamain coal mine last year. But it's tourism, not coal, that attracts Gordon Pacific. Executive Chairman Noel Gordon unveiled his $500 million resort at a media conference in Charlestown today. The 3-stage development includes 2 hotels and a world-class golf course, alongside a marina built on the biggest saltwater lake in the Southern Hemisphere, Lake Macquarie. Mr Gordon says the region's concentration on its coal has overlooked a huge tourist potential. He says the resort will rely heavily on the 70% of visitors to Australia who arrive in Sydney. They are just an hour away on the freeway.
One has to say what is the growth in the marketplace, and we obviously aren't designing for a peak. But I think Australia is such an attractive destination for tourism all over the world that the growth is predicted for many years yet.
Other resort proposals are springing up along the coastline, equally anxious to catch the attention of hotel chains. But Mr Gordon says none has the same amount of land and attractions. Even so, $500 million is a huge investment.
It's a large figure, and obviously our company wouldn't see itself providing all that equity at this particular point of time. We're conscious of the fact that we're going to be talking to Australian investors in regard to equity as far as the hotels are concerned. We've already been approached by overseas investors who obviously have a keen interest in this sort of development.
It's not only Lake Macquarie's Mayor Ivan Welsh who welcomes the development. A tourist expansion would mean jobs for thousands of people throughout the Hunter and Lakes region, providing unbounded opportunities. The plans will remain on display at Lake Macquarie Council chambers for 6 weeks. Work will then start on the golf course, which should be ready in time for the opening of the hotels in mid-1990.
Few regions can boast so many players in a state team that it can run training sessions at their home venue. The New South Wales women's indoor cricket team is one of those, with much of the team training regularly at the Cardiff Indoor Cricket Arena. The Hunter has quickly established itself as a strong training ground for indoor cricketers. Last year, 3 Newcastle women made the first state women's indoor team. That team managed a credible 4th place, and the players are confident of bettering that result this year. Captaining the squad for the 2nd time is Gail Cousins of Newcastle. Melissa Ray from Maitland also represented the state last year. Youngest team member is 16-year-old Lisa Hutt, also representing New South Wales for the 2nd time. Selected for the 1st time were Lee Ball, Roya Snelson and Jane Walmsley, all of Newcastle. The remainder of the team come from Sydney, Wollongong and Albury. The Newcastle players will travel to Sydney every weekend this month for training sessions in preparation for the national titles, which will be played in Queensland in June.